Welcome to Module 3 on Validity and Reliability. Similar to Module 2, this workshop is going to be presented within a training context, training evaluation context. And again, the same concepts that apply to a training evaluation relate to research studies. Therefore, in this lesson, you'll learn how to define, review, and illustrate the types of validity and reliability issues that are used within research studies as well as training evaluations. Now, the benefit of learning this information is to show you how you can support your instruments in terms of their design and producing consistent results. In other words, you have to design a valid instrument that is consistent in producing the same results time and time again. That's what reliability means. So, in the last module, you learned how to run the necessary statistics that are used in research studies, but this module is going to elaborate on previous information to show you how statistics plays a role when it comes time to supporting your instrument's reliability and validity. So if you look on the first page of your Module 3 workbook, you'll see the various objectives for this class. You'll see that we're going to review the 5 types of validity, we're going to define each as well as illustrate all of them, and we're going to name the 4 types of reliability, we'll define them as well as illustrate them. Similar to Module 2, you're going to be sent off to an internet workshop to give you a more thorough review, and then you're going to come back to this one for practice. Again, similar to Module 2, you can use Chrome, Firefox, or Explorer to view the training workshop. And again, it's written in a training evaluation context, but the information on validity and reliability applies to a research context. So again, you're going to click on the link. You're going to go to the workshop, and you're going to go through the various internet workshop here, the various screens and all that, and similar to the other one, there's videos and audios that you want to listen to. And then once you're done here, you're going to return to the workbook, and we're going to start on the first practice. Okay, so go ahead and shut off the video and proceed to this module workshop. Okay, we're going to go ahead and practice what we learned from the internet workshop of Module 3. And we're going to begin with validity. So without using any of your notes, I want you to name and define the 5 types of validity. So go ahead and shut off the video and go ahead and type in the 5 types of validity and define each. The 5 types of validity: there's content, there's face, there's concurrent, there's construct, and there's predictive validity. So let's start with content validity. Content validity measures the domain of knowledge and skills that it's intended to measure. So whatever the instrument is, it's content valid if the domain of what it's measuring is what it was intended to measure. Face validity is the appearance that the test is measuring what it's supposed to. Now, just because it has the appearance that it's measuring what it's supposed to doesn't mean that it's content valid. So remember, face validity and content validity are 2 separate and distinguished items. And most researchers are not going to just prove face validity, because face validity out of the 3 is the least significant type of validity. Content validity is definitely important, particularly if the content domain of something that you're measuring is the focus. Okay, the 3rd type of validity, concurrent validity, that type of validity is really, it's asking, does one test correlate with another? So it's a relationship of one test to another. Remember how we talked about correlations before, and correlations are looking at 2 variables? Well, concurrent validity is a correlation where it's looking at the relationship of one test to another. So you're trying to use one test to validate another. The fourth type of validity is construct validity. And construct validity measures a particular psychological trait or behavior. So construct validity is very different than concurrent validity or face validity or content validity. Construct measures a particular psychological trait or behavior. Predictive validity is looking to see if an instrument can forecast future behavior. So similar to when you take SATs or GREs, let's use GREs, the GRE score is meant to predict first year of graduate school success. That's how predictive validity works for the GRE. So that is the 5 types of validity: content, face, concurrent, construct, and predictive validity. So if you look at the exercise, there's a little case study below, and go ahead and read the case study and think about, what do you think, what types of validity would you need to support based on that case study information? Go ahead and close the video and then come back for your debrief. So in the case study, it says you're using a simultaneous pre-post self-efficacy instrument built into a reactioneer. You want to use the post self-efficacy scores to predict on-the-job behavior. Thus, your 2 instruments are the reactioneer and the on-the-job behavior. What type of validity do you need to support for each instrument? So within the reactioneer, you have a simultaneous pre-post self-efficacy instrument. And since that is looking at, remember, self-efficacy relies on the performance objectives of a training program. So that relies on a content. So you would need to support the content validity of that aspect of the reactioneer. Plus, you're trying to use post self-efficacy scores to predict on-the-job behavior. So in that respect, too, you have to support the predictive validity of your post self-efficacy instrument. Now, if you are so inclined, you can also support face validity of all instruments, being the reactioneer and the on-the-job behavior. Along with the on-the-job behavior, not only do you have to support face validity, but you would need to support content validity. Okay, so that is our practice on validity. If you move to the next page, we're going to talk about reliability. So here I want you to do the same thing. I want you to shut down the video and go ahead using your own brain, not notes, so we could see how much that you've learned from the internet workshop. Go ahead and name and define the 4 types of reliability. And then after you do so, come back and we will do a debrief. So we have 4 types of reliability. We have test, retest, we have parallel forms, we have split half, and we have internal consistency. Test, retest looks at, it has 1 test and 2 administrations. Test, retest is looking at consistency over time. Okay, so test, retest, 1 test, 2 administrations. So it's consistency over time. The second is parallel forms. Here we're looking at 2 different tests, but they're measuring the same content domain. So we're seeing the reliability within a particular subject group, their answers, but it's based on 2 different tests. But remember, it's measuring the same content domain. The third would be split half. Here we have 1 test, but it's being split into 2 sections. And the fourth would be internal consistency. Here we're looking to see what is the relationship between each item to the total score. So once again, we're going to use a case study, and I want you to indicate what type of reliability do you think we need to support for each instrument. Go ahead and shut off the video and put down your answers, and then we will come back to debrief. The case study says you're using a reactioneer that contains sections regarding the room, trainer, and workbook. It also has a section containing a simultaneous pre-post self-efficacy instrument. Additionally, you are using a pre- and post knowledge exam. What types of reliability do you need to support for each instrument? With the reactioneer, the part that has the nominal data, which would be dealing with the rooms, trainer, and workbook, it would be great if you could do some type of consistency over time. In other words, you want to make sure that what the subjects are marking as their answers are consistent from one administration to the next. So we know that how they're evaluating it is the same. For the simultaneous pre-post, those you want to make sure you have internal consistency. You need to make sure that those items are working together. Likewise, for your pre and post self-knowledge exam, you also want to make sure those items are internally consistent. And if you have the ability to do a test, retest, you might even want to do that to make sure that their answers are consistent over time. But the big thing would be internal consistency. Now, before we end this practice, I have a question for you. Is reliability a prerequisite to validity, or is validity a prerequisite to reliability? Go ahead and think for a moment, and then I will tell you the answer. Okay, remember, reliability is a prerequisite to validity because an instrument could be reliable without being valid. In other words, it could produce consistent scores time and time again, but the scores that it's producing isn't truly measuring the entity that it was designed to measure. With validity, researchers want it, in order to be valid, whether it be content valid, face valid, any type of validity, it doesn't really matter. But as a prerequisite to the validity, it has to produce consistent scores time and time again. So that's it for this lesson. Here you've learned the general concepts of validity and reliability, as well as refined the understanding of how to support the instruments, whether it be in a research study or a training context. In the next lesson, Module 4, you will learn about other statistical tools such as the chi-square and the ANOVA, and you're also going to learn how to select the best statistical tool to use for your research goals.